get started. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here today with us. My name is Chuck Slemp, and I serve as Commonwealth's Attorney for Wise County and the City of Norton. I'm joined by Chief Deputy Commonwealth's Attorney Stephen Davis, as well as Assistant Commonwealth's Attorney Joyce Kilgore, and members of my wonderful staff. I'm proud to have with me Donna Lawson, Denise Payne, Victim Witness Assistant Megan Greer, and our Director of Outreach, Jessica Hood. I'm also pleased to be joined today with Greg Powers with the Virginia State Police. Greg, thank you for being here, and thank you to the State Police for your role in this incident. And I'm honored to stand with Wise County Sheriff Greg Kilgore. Sheriff Kilgore and his wonderful leadership here with the Wise County Sheriff's Department does a fantastic job for our community. So thank you, Sheriff, for what you do. And thank you for your team, and many of which are here today. We're joined by Captain Charlie Sanders, Captain Tim Wagner, Captain Charles Curry. Love you, buddy. Lieutenant Teresa Meade. I promised him I'd do that. Lieutenant Teresa Meade and Lieutenant Ryan Phillips. As well as Teresa Meade, yes, as well. Here somewhere. So we are here to release the details and findings of the officer-involved shooting and stabbing that occurred on July 17th, 2021. I want to begin by saying that this investigation was made at the request of Sheriff Kilgore. The Virginia State Police Bureau of Criminal Investigation, in response to that request, conducted a thorough and excellent independent investigation into the matter. The lead investigator in this case was Special Agent Josh Kite. Special Agent Kite can't be here today. He's working on another case this morning. And I want to recognize Special Agent Kite and the entire team at the Virginia State Police Bureau of Criminal Investigation for their excellent hard work to gather all the facts, to interview witnesses, to review the physical evidence in the case, execute search warrants, and provide to us a detailed report from the incident and detailing what transpired on July 17th of this year. And I really want to say and commend the Virginia State Police for their excellent job. It was thorough, it was unbiased, it was excellent. Virginia State Police investigators then turned over that report to my office, the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office here at Wise. And since receiving that report, following our normal protocol, what we did was we independently reviewed the evidence, conducted our own independent review. Our investigation was based on a balanced examination of the facts and review of appropriate state law in this context. It's the role of the Commonwealth's Attorney across the state in investigations just like this to carefully review the use of force and determine whether a crime has been committed. And this case is no different. We have done that. This morning, we delivered a copy of our findings and independent review to Special Agent Kite and to Sheriff Kilgore. And in the next few moments, I will detail with you some of the facts from this case, the law of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and why I reached the conclusion I did. You'll hear also from Sheriff Kilgore, and we will also be glad to take your questions and answer any question that we can at the appropriate time. I will say, to be clear, that some of the details of this incident can't be released. And I hope you respect that. Virginia Code Section 16.1-301, for instance, provides that the details of any identifiable minor can't be disclosed. And so we will not be releasing the details or the identity of any identifiable minor pursuant to Virginia law. Also, in this case, there's body camera footage and dash camera footage that will not be released. And that's because 2.2-3701.c and 2.2-3706, as well as 19.2, 11.2, and 16.1-301, in combination of all those different code sections, the release of that footage would constitute an unreasonable invasion of personal privacy for the individuals involved, that it would depict a victim or allow a victim to be readily identifiable, and further, Release of that video would allow the identity of a minor or minors to be identifiable, and so we're simply not allowed to do that. Now, but that being said, I want to be as transparent and thorough as possible today, and that's why we're releasing our report, which you should have a copy of in front of you. We're also releasing some of the still shot photographs from the body camera and dash camera footage. You should have some of that here in your packet. We'll put that on the board here in just a few minutes. As you know by now, we're talking about the shooting that occurred in the Dunbar community of Wise County near Appalachia on July 17th. For those of you who don't know where Dunbar is, it's a former coal camp in the western corner of Wise County, as you see depicted on this map on the screen with the red pin and the yellow circle. The community is to the west of the town of Wise and the city of Norton. It is to the northeast of the town of Appalachia. As you can see on this close-up map on the screen, the location of this incident is near the Dunbar section of Wise County. It's a very remote location. It's overgrown with vegetation, accessible only by uneven, heavily rutted dirt roads. There's a lot of little side roads. On a satellite map, it may look like they're right next to each other, almost touching. But the reality is that terrain is uneven. In reality, there's some of these roads that may look like they're right next to each other, but they're separated by a mining high wall. And it might take 15 to 20 minutes to drive from one point on the map to the next. This case begins not with a shooting investigation, but something a little different. This case began with the call for help for parents concerned with two missing juveniles. On July 17th at approximately 6:41 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Wise County Sheriff's Department received a report from one of those parents of a missing 16-year-old male child from his home in Norton, Virginia. It was also reported at the time that there was a stolen or missing 2015 white Chevy Equinox missing from that same residence. A short time later, at 6:58 Eastern Standard Time, a report was made of a missing 13-year-old female from her residence in Big Stone Gap. After receiving the report, the Sheriff's Department did what they do in every routine case like this. They responded. Two deputies particularly went and did their best to try to locate the juveniles, Deputy Sturgill and Deputy Robinson. They spent most of the morning investigating, interviewing witnesses, gathering information, following leads, trying to find the two missing juveniles. The deputies interviewed in particular one witness who stated that she had been texting with the male by phone and that they were believed to be together and they were believed to still be in the area. So the search continued. The search continued until 14:19 Eastern Standard Time when dispatch received a call from a concerned citizen in the Dunbar community. That citizen reported that the white Chevy Equinox that matched the description of the one that was stolen earlier that morning was in the Pine Branch area of Appalachia in the Dunbar community. Show on the map here on the screen the area of Route 603 near Appalachia where the vehicle was believed to be seen. The Virginia State Police obtained the dispatch records as part of their independent investigation into this matter to try to explain what happened and why the officers were where they were. A transcript of those dispatch records is now on the screen, and I'll go through just a few of the high points here with you, as well as that transcript is in your written report along with a copy of my findings. A caller called dispatch and said a white Chevrolet is on the side of the road near Route 603. The vehicle looked to be covered by a tree or tree limbs. That it appeared that someone was actively trying to hide the car or attempt to conceal its whereabouts with tree limbs. And that the caller said that it was very strange or out of the ordinary. The caller also stated that there appeared to be a female inside the car, and that female was, quote, in pretty bad shape, that she had, quote, been harmed. And that's direct quotes from the dispatch records. So the deputies responded as quickly as they could to that area. 3 deputies in particular, 3 units responded, those being Lieutenant Zach Clifton, Deputy Tasha Smith, Deputy Robert Robinson. At 14:59 Eastern Standard Time, they went to the area. They were at the location where the vehicle was supposedly last seen, but the vehicle was gone. Now, they were advised at the time by the witness that the vehicle left but was still in the area. And they knew that because the area roads, there was one way in and one way out because of this abandoned coal mine. So they split up going into the abandoned coal mine property, trying to find the juveniles, trying to make sure that this female, who was, quote, in bad shape, was safe. Again, they believed that she had been harmed. That was the report. They split up, dividing out among all the little side roads, the little dirt roads, the uneven tracks, all over that abandoned coal mine. I'll also note that ambulance personnel was on the scene. Rescue squad had been dispatched, and they were there ready to take the female to the hospital if she had indeed been harmed. As luck would have it, thank God they were there. This photo on the screen now is taken from the dash cam footage of the deputy's patrol car. And I think it does a good job at depicting the general area. It shows the abandoned surface mine property, and as you can see, the roads in this area are uneven, dirt roads, heavily rutted. They're remote. The area has very little cell coverage. If anybody's been there, they can't get a signal out. The area is overgrown. It's dense vegetation, and mining high walls like the one you see depicted here in the background are everywhere. The deputy units split up and checked many of the side roads that look just like this. It was Deputy Robinson at 15:10 Eastern Standard Time that first located the vehicle that matched the description of the one that had been stolen, the white Chevy Equinox. He signaled at the time to dispatch using his radio that he had located the car, and he signaled the location as well as the exact GPS coordinates to dispatch and the other units. Upon receipt of that information, the other units tried to locate him, but again, because of the area, because of the uneven roads, it was very difficult to know exactly where he was. Looking on the map with the GPS coordinates, the units looked like they were right next to each other, but they were nowhere to be seen. They couldn't easily access that area. They couldn't respond quickly to the remote location because of the poor condition of those roads. Again, just so that you see the visual here on the screen, this is the map. The pin, the red pin in the top right-hand corner is the GPS coordinates, and you'll see all the different little mining roads coming and going. This is a screenshot that's taken again from the dash cam footage. It shows the officer's patrol cruiser arriving at the location where the pin was on that screen. On the middle to left-hand portion of your screen to my right, you can barely see and make out, almost entirely obscured from view in the high grass, the bushes and trees, the white Chevy Equinox. Now, it may be difficult to spot it, so we'll highlight it here. On the dash cam footage, you can actually see some movement of someone or something on and around the vehicle there, but it's hard to make out. This screenshot is again taken from the dash cam footage. When the patrol vehicle came to a stop, Deputy Robinson on the video can be seen exiting the vehicle, going toward that white Chevy Equinox to get a better visual because, as you can see, this area, this angle is obscured. Deputy Robinson stated that he waited a bit in the high grass trying to figure out where he was and let the other units figure out where he was. While waiting for the other units to arrive, Deputy Robinson stepped off into this high brush area here, into the weeds. His desire was to stay concealed from the movement that was going on, whoever it was that was trying actively to conceal the whereabouts of that vehicle, and wait on his backup to get there. At 15:10:57 Eastern Standard Time, we know that Deputy Robinson's body camera activated as he exited the vehicle and as he began to wade through the high grass toward that area. This is a view from Deputy Robinson's body-worn camera taken from about the same angle as that last picture. This is the view that Deputy Robinson approximately had. And I say approximately because the video camera for the body-worn camera is actually on the deputy's body. And just for a visual, Lieutenant Phillips, do you mind? Lieutenant Phillips with the Sheriff's Department is here today, and he's wearing a body-worn camera similar to the one worn by Deputy Robinson that day, and it's positioned approximately on his body, just over his stomach. Deputy Robinson's body-worn camera was in the exact same location as Lieutenant Phillips, as he's wearing today. Thank you, Lieutenant Phillips. Ultimately, the body-worn camera accurately captures and depicts the incidents that happened. We have the benefit also of Deputy Robinson's statement that he made to the Virginia State Police following the incident. He provided the State Police with a written incident detailing what happened and why it happened. According to Deputy Robinson's statement at the time, he stated that he observed a male subject sort of on top of the SUV and, quote, facing in my direction. Again, here's the vehicle that you can see here. Movement of vegetation, tree limbs, bushes, shrubs can be seen being placed on the white Chevy Equinox by the male subject. Deputy Robinson's body-worn camera and dash camera captures that. As you can see in this close-up, the vehicle itself was partially obstructed from view by limbs and cuttings. This is just a close-up, and the tag number of the vehicle has been obscured so as to protect the identities of those involved. For approximately 6 minutes, Deputy Robinson waited in the tall grass, again waiting for backup to arrive. He maintained a visual of the vehicle. He continued to observe the male subject on and around the vehicle, attempting to obscure the vehicle from view with tree branches. And at this point, now it's important to remember that the deputy had information that the vehicle matching this very same vehicle's description had been stolen, that 2 juveniles were missing, that 1 was potentially harmed. He didn't know if this was a runaway situation or that someone had kidnapped both juveniles and had done harm to one. However, as a well-trained and experienced, dedicated officer, Deputy Robinson waited on his backup. That's what he's trained to do. He did that as long as he could, reasonably, while keeping the safety of those in mind in the vehicle. He waited until the male subject disappeared from view and stopped placing things, trees, shrubs, etc., on top of the vehicle. At that point, he couldn't wait any longer. He had to act. So Deputy Robinson calls dispatch at that point on his police radio. And he says, quote, "He took off on me. I'm going after him." You can see here the picture from Deputy Robinson's body-worn camera. That view from 15:16:41 Eastern Standard Time when he began to move towards the vehicle. Excuse me. You can still see the white Chevy Equinox up in the top right-hand corner of the picture, circled on your screen. Now, just so you picture this, this is an uphill slope. This isn't easy walking. It's uphill through high grass. Ultimately, as the deputy explained to the Virginia State Police, he lost sight of the suspect and, quote, figured that he must have seen me and had taken off. He said that he decided, quote, to move on up and try to take him into custody for an unauthorized use offense. I think it's important to note that, to be clear, at this stage, Deputy Robinson had probable cause to place that suspect in custody at the time for the offense, a felony offense in Virginia of unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Again, this area being on a slope, trying to walk up the hill might have been difficult through the high grass and shrubs without drawing attention to yourself. As you see here on the picture, Deputy Robinson places gloves on both of his hands as he begins to walk toward the vehicle. Being very clear, he does not draw a weapon, he does not draw a firearm on his way to the vehicle. I'll back up a second and show you this photo, which demonstrates the high and dense foliage and growth of shrubs that surround the vehicle, making it difficult to actually get to the vehicle at that time. At 15:16:54 Eastern Standard Time, Deputy Robinson makes verbal and visual contact with the male suspect. The male suspect is seated inside the vehicle. The windows are down. Deputy Robinson calmly states at this point, quote, "Stay put, show me your hands." Then he asks the suspect to exit the vehicle. He actually attempts to open the door to the vehicle, but the door is locked. And at 15:17:02, Robinson asks the suspect to unlock the door. One of the suspect's hands is hanging out the window. At 15:17:11 Eastern Standard Time, Robinson places one handcuff on the suspect's left arm. This is done calmly, it's not aggressively done. You can see here in the photo, the suspect's arm was outside the vehicle on the driver's side window, and Deputy Robinson requests that the suspect, quote, "come on out of the vehicle." At 15:17:15 Eastern Standard Time, the door fully opens to the vehicle, and the suspect then steps out. He stands up, and he reaches back into the driver's seat area of the vehicle at this point, as you can see demonstrated on this picture. This being, again, another still shot from the body-worn camera. At 15:17:16 Eastern Standard Time, Deputy Robinson states, "Show me your hands." Again, one of the hands is inside the vehicle. The suspect briefly complies at first and shows his hand, but then he reaches back in to the driver's seat at that point at 15:17:21 Eastern Standard Time. At that point, Deputy Robinson says and asks, "What do you got?" This slide, this photo, shows Deputy Robinson's view of the suspect that day. Deputy Robinson told investigators with the state police that he observed the suspect come out of the vehicle at that point with the knife. The knife can be seen here in the screenshot, frozen from the body-worn camera, just a second or less after he says, "What do you got?" And again, this is probably a better image. You can see the knife in this image, held by the suspect in his right hand as he exits the vehicle. And I'll toggle back and forth to see the movement. It was approximately 15:17:22 Eastern Standard Time when the suspect used the knife in one swift motion to attack viciously the officer. It was one synchronous motion. According to the statement provided by Deputy Robinson, quote, "He cut me with the first swing. He then stepped in close and continued to swing and cut me with the knife. I tried to key my radio to call for help, and that is when he cut me along the side of my head. We hit the ground. I tried to take the knife from him." This graphic screenshot photo from the body cam has been redacted pursuant to Virginia law so that the identity of the minor can be kept confidential and in respect to his family. You can see on this photo the suspect's right hand coming at the officer still holding the suspect's left hand, which is handcuffed, the suspect with the knife in his right. The force of the attack knocked Deputy Robinson backwards, toward the ground and onto the ground. He landed a distance of 10 feet or more from where the initial attack happened, backwards down the hill. The deputy landed on the ground. The suspect landed on top of him. You can see in this photo, taken from the officer's body-worn camera, the officer on the ground and the suspect on top of him. This entire incident, from where the officer begins up the hill and says, "He's taking off on me, I'm going after him," until he's on the ground being attacked, is approximately 55 seconds. We have an audio of that particular excerpt from the body-worn camera, as well as a transcript that I'll place on the screen. I'll play that recording now. It's taken from the body-worn camera. However, we will not show the body-worn camera pursuant to Virginia law to protect those identities. Bear with me with technology. Let's see if it works.
He's took off on me. I'm going after him. Stay put. Show me your hands. Step back. Unlock the door. Unlock that door. Hold on. Alright, come on now. Show me the other hand. Alright, come on. What you got?
At 15-17-36, Deputy Robinson fired one shot from his service weapon. This entire attack and struggle from the moment that the knife came at the officer until the shot was fired is approximately 15 to 20 seconds. In his statement to the Virginia State Police, Robinson said, "During the struggle, while we were on the ground, I felt him cut my throat with the knife. He hit my jugular. I thought he hit my jugular. I was bleeding bad and blood was gushing. At that point, I pulled my gun and shot it. I'm not sure what position I was in or what position he was in at the time. After I shot, the fighting stopped and I pulled away from him. My radio cord was tangled up. After getting it somewhat untangled, I noticed my gun on the ground. I picked it up and holstered it." At 15:18 Eastern Standard Time, Deputy Robinson then calls dispatch and reports shots fired. There was only one shot. He states that he had been stabbed, that he was bleeding badly, that the injuries were severe. You see this photo, again taken from the body-worn camera as the officer is standing up seconds after being attacked. The blood is depicted on the video falling from Deputy Robinson's body-worn camera and from his wounds. At At 17:18 Eastern Standard Time, approximately, Deputy Robinson called dispatch, asked for help, but miraculously began to administer self-aid. He applied pressure to his neck to try to prevent bleeding out. During this time, the other deputies who heard the call were unsure of his location, began to rush to the scene, tried to respond as soon as they could to that secluded location, but again, the road conditions being difficult, the terrain being difficult, it's almost impossible to get there quickly. Deputy Robinson then, while continuously holding and applying pressure to his neck and administering self-aid, attempted to drive himself out of the area to safety. It was at 15:28 Eastern Standard Time that Lieutenant Clifton and Deputy Smith were able to locate the deputy, rendered additional first aid, provided transport for EMS, and then later at 15:31 Eastern Standard Time, Deputy Robinson was then transported by air to Johnson City Medical Center. He was admitted to the ICU upon arrival. He was in critical condition. He suffered 5 stab wounds and or lacerations to the face, to the neck, to the ear, and the head. He had severe blood loss. He was administered emergency treatment of 500 milliliters of blood, 200 cc's of plasma, clotting agent, 1,000 cc's of saline. His treatment required over 30 staples, over 40 stitches. I think one of the treating physicians said so many that they had to stop counting. I've been told that some of the photos of Deputy Robinson after the treatment were placed on Facebook or on social media. If you've not seen those before, these injuries are graphic. I'm going to show a portion of that here. We'll show 2 photos from the state police file and from our investigative file. This photo was taken after the surgery. Depicts some of the wounds suffered by the deputy. This photo showing some of the wounds. You can't even see the full extent of the wound to the deputy's neck. At this point, Deputy Robinson was airlifted, but the other units then continued to go to the scene to check on the juvenile, female, and the other individual. While units were on their way to the scene, the female was able to make a call from inside the vehicle. Despite spotty cell service, she called dispatch. She reported that she was not injured. She said that she was in the car, that the male suspect was outside of the vehicle, approximately 10 feet from the vehicle, and that she stayed in the vehicle. Shortly thereafter, units made contact with her and took her into custody. Fortunately, she was not physically harmed. Later, Virginia State Police interviewed her. They conducted an interview, and she told investigators that she didn't see anything happen because she, quote, placed her hands down and her head down in her lap. She said that she knew that the suspect had knives, 2 in particular, in the car. She described the knife that the male suspect used to attack the deputy. She also stated that she stayed in the vehicle the entire time until the other units arrived. At 15:52:39 Eastern Standard Time, Deputy Gardner made first contact with the male suspect. He found the male laying on the ground, knife still clenched in the suspect's right hand. Deputy Gardner removed the knife, checked the pulse, placed the knife on the ground, found no pulse, and then pulled back for Virginia State Police to conduct their investigation. Virginia State Police officers, when they arrived, they recovered a knife from the high grass that was placed there by Deputy Gardner after he removed it from the suspect's right hand. You can see in this photo the knife. It's a black hawkbill style knife with reddish brown stains which appear to be consistent with blood on the blade. Investigators secured the deputy's service weapon, the second knife, which was found inside the vehicle. Unfortunately, the suspect was pronounced dead at the scene by medical personnel. An autopsy was later conducted by the Virginia State Department of Forensic Science and Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and concluded that the suspect died as a result of a gunshot wound to the left upper forehead. Toxicology of the suspect's body did not detect the presence of any drug or alcohol in his blood. Deputy Robinson remained in the hospital, as you may know, for the next several days in intensive care in critical condition. He was later released from the hospital, but he is still, as of today's date, recovering from his injuries. He is still under a doctor's care. Out of respect for his personal privacy and his medical privacy, no further information will be released concerning his medical condition and his current condition. I would, however, ask that you please join me in praying for the deputy, Deputy Robinson, and his brave and lovely family. Now, that's a summary of the factual findings of the case. I apologize for the length of that narrative, but it's important to be as thorough as possible. And I believe in transparency. So, at this point, as you know, the Virginia State Police concluded their investigation and turned the file over to us. Mr. Davis and I have reviewed the evidence, carefully analyzed Virginia state law, and conducted a thorough legal analysis of the facts as they apply to the law. And in order to understand my decision, it's important to note just exactly what area of Virginia law we're talking about. So briefly, in Virginia, all citizens, including law enforcement, have the right to defend themselves when attacked. Under Virginia law, when a police officer has probable cause to believe that a suspect poses a threat of serious physical harm, either to himself or to others, it is legally permissible for that officer to use deadly force to prevent the attack to himself or to others. The amount of force used must be reasonable and not excessive in relation to the perceived threat. Virginia law provides, and I'll quote from the screen, that the use of deadly force is an act of necessity. The law must be shown by, quote, reasonable apprehension of immediate danger. Now, what does that mean? Reasonable apprehension is a big word. Immediate danger, we all know. What does that mean? Well, in this context, imminent danger means a perceived threat to your safety or the safety of others. It's what did the officer believe was going to happen when he was attacked with the knife. An application of the law to the facts of this case leads me to one very simple conclusion. That the officer acted in self-defense. He acted in reasonable apprehension of immediate danger to himself. He perceived a threat to his own safety as a result of the assailant's attack with the deadly weapon. We know that he had reason to believe that the female was harmed. He had probable cause to arrest the suspect. While lawfully arresting that suspect without provocation, the attacker viciously launched himself at the officer with a deadly weapon, with a hawksbill-style knife, and struck the officer in the neck, causing a gash that makes your stomach turn. The force of the blow from that knife knocked the deputy backwards 10 feet or more onto the ground. Considerable force. Then the attacker landed on the deputy and continued to attack him with the knife, continuing to cut him and severely, if not mortally, wound the deputy. The deputy was unable to take the knife away. He was unable to call for help, unable to repel the attack with the individual on top of him, cut several times, bleeding profusely from head to ear to neck. He was left with no other choice. It's therefore my conclusion that deadly force was necessary to defend himself from the perceived threat. Deadly force was necessary to defend himself from the actual threat. It was a suspect's act of attacking the deputy with the knife that ultimately necessitated the deputy's response. I'll also conclude the amount of force used by the deputy was reasonable in relation to the perceived and actual threat. Therefore, I've concluded that under Virginia's law of self-defense, Deputy Robinson acted in a justifiable manner. He acted properly and in accord with the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Let me be clear, no criminal charges will be filed against the officer because I believe that the officer did everything right. He acted in justifiable use of self-defense. In conclusion, I want to say thank you again to the Virginia State Police for an excellent job. Thank you, gentlemen, for standing here all this time. I wanted to be thorough, unbiased, and independent in our review and investigation and presenting this information to you. Further, we should all commend Wise County Sheriff Greg Kilgore and his well-trained and excellent department. I believe that the Sheriff's Department is one of the best run, best prepared, and well-trained departments in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Their excellent training and experienced officers, like Deputy Robinson and the others that responded that day, showed diligently how hard they work to keep us all safe in our community and how difficult their job is on a daily basis. They have an incredibly difficult, stressful, and sometimes thankless job. So I want to express my gratitude and thanks to all of you all on your hard work. And I also want to thank Deputy Robinson for his bravery, for his service, for his sacrifices, and his professionalism. In the end, it's unfortunate that life was lost on July 17th. I've spoken with the family of the young man several times. I know that their hearts are broken. I know that the family of this young man, they're hurting just as much as law enforcement is hurting. And I'll say that they might even blame themselves for this. They shouldn't. They did everything they should and could to stop it, just as the officers did everything they should and could to stop this from happening. But they are left asking themselves, why did it happen? I think we all are. And I can't answer that. I don't think any of us can. I don't think any of us can comprehend why something like this happened, why a young man would attack a police officer like he did. There are, in life, just some events that can never be explained. All we can do is pray for the family of this juvenile and for the deputy and his family. The deputy was forced to take the action he did. Our hearts and prayers go out to all involved in this matter, and I sincerely hope that they can find peace eventually. At this time, that concludes my remarks. I will hand it over to Sheriff Kilgore, and then I'll stand aside if you have any questions in a few moments. Sheriff Kilgore?
Good morning. I think Chuck has done an excellent job of covering all the timelines and the facts of this case. I'm not going to go back over those. I think it's very self-explanatory what happened. Deputy Robinson and the other units were in that area for a lawful purpose. Obviously, a stolen vehicle, 2 juveniles that were missing and probably unable to make good decisions on how to take care of themselves in that situation. Deputy Robinson responded exactly as I would want him to, very professionally. He was courteous to the offender and in no way provoked this attack. The offender, for reasons unknown, attempted to murder Deputy Robinson on July 17th. Deputy Robinson attempted other levels of force by trying to take the knife away from him, ultimately forced to employ deadly force to save his own life. When we look at the facts of this case and we judge it on the standard of reasonableness, and if you or I would have taken the same action in this situation to save our own life, then we've accomplished that standard. This one is an easy call. I think the Virginia State Police were a well-conducted, independent, totally independent investigation into this matter. And I think Commonwealth Attorney Chuck Slemp and his staff for reviewing all statements, video, any evidence related to this case, and coming to the proper conclusion. The decision is correct, in my opinion. Beyond that, I pray for Deputy Robinson and his family, what they've been through, and also the offender and his family. As Chuck said, they're hurting, and they need the prayers, and they need to find peace with this situation. And I pray for that daily for all parties involved. Other than that, thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Sheriff Kilgore. At this time, we'll answer questions if we can. We'll try to be as transparent and as thorough as we could during the presentation, so maybe you might not have as many questions. So, is there any question from the media?
This is really for Sheriff Kilgore. What kind of status is he on right now while he's away? Paid leave?
He's on administrative paid leave, right?
And I know it's really early, he's still recovering from his injuries, but has he expressed to you a want to come back to work when the time comes?
That's really, we've not covered that topic yet, and we're going to have some time on that, so there'll be a day for that conversation, so I can't get.
All right, and just for some background, how long has he been with your department?
2018, I don't remember the exact month, but he's been here approximately 3 years.
And just a procedural question. So is it typical procedure to split up in situations like this where it's a large amount of ground to cover?
Absolutely. When you have that much ground to cover, that's the smart thing to do. So same thing, cover in a smaller section, spread out, try to time that, whatever object you're looking for, obviously. That, if you're not familiar with it, extremely remote. You've got roads, cut off roads, cut off roads, and cut off more roads. It's amazing, a maze is what it is. But that's not what the procedure is.
I'd also note that Sheriff probably would like funding, but doesn't have the funding to send 2 deputies out on every single call.
That's what.
Any other questions? No? All right, well, thank you again for your time, for coming here today. God bless you all. God bless this officer, our law enforcement officers, and God bless Virginia and our nation.
Thank you all.